Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So, this is the first podcast episode for the discussion for Fantasy Premier League. So, here in this podcast, we will discuss about the game week results in the Premier League football and the fantasy football manager and its relative points which we have accumulated due to this fixture results. So, without further ado, we are going to analyze the results for the game week 25 in the Barclays Premier League. So, if you see the fixture results, we can see that the game week started early this week. This was a Friday kickoff rather than the conventional Saturday or Sunday kickoffs. So the first game was between Brighton and Chelsea. Here if we can see that Brighton won against Chelsea and they secured the clean sheet. So the final score is 3-0 and 2 goals were scored by Minte and 1 goal was scored by Mitoma. Coming to the next fixtures, on Saturday we had Leicester City versus Arsenal and Arsenal won the match 2-0. Aston Villa and Ipswich match was a draw. Even though Ipswich played with 10 men, Aston Villa could not get the win at Villa Park. Next we have the battle at the Craven Cottage between Fulham and Nottingham Forest. In this exciting tie, Fulham won the match 2-1. Next, the match unfolded at the Etihad Stadium where Manchester City hosted Newcastle United. Manchester City won 4-0 thanks to a hat-trick by Omar Marmoush. So next we have the battle of the extremes between the relegation struggling Southampton and the high-flying Bournemouth. In this encounter, Southampton, as expected, was defeated by Bournemouth. For Bournemouth, goals were scored by Christie, Danko and Tavernier. In another match featuring West Ham and Brentford, Brentford narrowly won the match 1-0 thanks to the solo goal from Kevin Shad. The final fixture of Saturday was between Crystal Palace and Everton at Selhurst Park, where Everton won the match 2-1. And the goals were scored by Mateta from Crystal Palace and Beto and Alcaraz for Everton. On Sunday, we had 2 Premier League matches. The first match was between Liverpool and Wolves at Anfield. Liverpool won the match 2-1 thanks to the goals from Luis Diaz and Mohamed Salah. The solo goal from Wolves came from Matheus Cunha. The next game, or the final game of Sunday, was between Spurs and Man United. 2 teams who were struggling in the bottom half of the Premier League table. And the critical game was decided by the goal from James Maddison. And on Wednesday, on 19th of February, we have one more fixture featuring Aston Villa versus Liverpool at Villa Park. And this encounter will be a double game week encounter for both Aston Villa and Liverpool. Coming to the Premier League fantasy status, we can see that I have scored 74 points so far for the game week 25, although I have some more players involved in game week 25, like Rogers, Watkins, and Salah are left to play for the second game week or the double game week 25, which is going to be featured on Wednesday. So as you can see, I have opted for a 3-4-3 formation, and I have played the assistant manager chip as well, which I played last week also. So talking about the goalkeeper, I had chosen Raya from Arsenal as my goalkeeper, and he had scored 7 points from the fixture against Leicester. Of course, he kept a clean sheet and he had a bonus point of +1. So totally 7 points for Raya. For the defenders, I had chosen Milos Kerkez from Bournemouth, Pedro Porro from Spurs, and Ole Aina from Nottingham Forest. As you can see, Kerkez and Aina had underperformed, and Pedro Porro was pretty good against Manchester United. In case of Kerkez, he hadn't had any goal involvements against the match versus Southampton. If you see the form of Kerkez, he had a pretty good game weekend or games prior to this game week 25. In fact, he was disappointing against Liverpool, only scored 1 point, but against Nottingham Forest and Newcastle, he was pretty good and pretty solid. So overall, if you see, he scored only like 16 points from the last 4 game weeks. So the game week form is only 4, but he have favorable run of fixtures for the upcoming game weeks, such as for game week 25 is against Southampton, game week 26 against Wolves, and game week 27 against Brighton and Hove Albion. So my verdict is to keep Kerkez and Raya. So next the player is Pedro Porro. Pedro Porro constantly delivers consistent game week points. If you see his form, he has delivered 6 points against Manchester United this game week. In the previous game weeks as well, he has scored 6 points against Brentford and Leicester. So he is actually now a consistent player delivering results. And if you see the upcoming fixtures for Tottenham, these are very favorable because the next game week is against Ipswich, and the fixture against Manchester City and Bournemouth will be tricky. So my verdict is like keep Poro for game week 26 and decide for alternate options for game week 27 and 28. Talking about Ola Aina was very disappointing for the last 4 or 5 game weeks. If you see, his form is only 3, and if you see the run of fixtures or the upcoming fixtures, we can see that Nottingham Forest faces Newcastle in game week 26, Arsenal at game week 27, and Manchester City at game week 28. So the fixture difficulty rankings are not very good. It's very tough fixtures awaiting Nottingham Forest, and especially for defenders like Ole. So my verdict is to sell Ole for the upcoming game week. Next, we can focus on the midfielders. The first one is Brian Mbeumo. Actually, I had very high expectations for Mbeumo. Mbeumo underperformed against West Ham and Tottenham for the previous 2 fixtures, and as you can see, he is not having a very good form. His form is only 3.5, and the reason why I am still having faith in Mbeumo to score is that in the upcoming fixtures he has a very favorable run of fixtures with the bottom end of Premier League table fixtures with Leicester, Everton, and mid-table encounter against Aston Villa. So my verdict is to keep Mbeumo. Before going to the captaincy, Mohamed Salah, I will focus on Morgan Rogers. So Morgan Rogers was very disappointing against Ipswich. I had higher expectations for Rogers to score against, bottom half relegation battling teams, especially when he had such a good form in Champions League and FA Cup. But he clearly underperformed against Ipswich Town, Wolves, West Ham United, Arsenal, etc. So only five game week points from the last 4 fixtures. So I don't expect him to score, much points against Liverpool, but I hope he scores against Liverpool. So my verdict is to not keep Rodgers in the midfield for the upcoming game week. So that's my verdict on Rodgers. And next is about Justin Kluivert. Justin Kluivert is having a very good run of form. If you see against Southampton, he had an assist. So he scored 5 points. He was very disappointing against Liverpool. Scored only 2 points, but against Nottingham Forest and Newcastle and against Chelsea, he amassed a total of 43 points. So which is very great returns. And of course, if you see his price tag, it is only 6 million. So he is comparably a cheaper option in midfield. And my verdict is to keep Justin Kluivert. This is because of the upcoming game week fixtures for Bournemouth. Of course, they have Wolves at game week 26 and Brighton for game week 27 and Spurs for game week 28. So my verdict is to keep Justin Kluivert for game week 26. Next in midfield is my captain, which I preferred, or most of the FPL managers prefer. Of course, he does not need any special introduction. It's Mohamed Salah. Mohamed Salah had a good return against Wolves. He played the entire 90 minutes and scored a goal and had one bonus point. So it will be 8 points for Salah in the first game week 25 match. Of course, we have another match coming up against Aston Villa at Villa Park. So if you see Salah is the most consistent performer in the FPL this season, and his total of 259 match game points is comparable to no other Premier League player. So he is a consistent performer and an inevitable player in the FPL game week. So if you see the upcoming fixtures for Salah, we can see that he's having one more game week 25 fixture against Aston Villa, game week 26 against Manchester City, and game week 27 against Newcastle. These three fixtures are actually a little bit of tough fixtures. Of course, if you see the fixture difficulty rating, it's 3, 4, and 3. So it's not a very good run of favorable fixtures, but Salah delivers when it matters. So my verdict is to keep Salah for the next game week. Of course, coming to the forwards, the first forward I selected is Watkins. Watkins had a good run of fixture against Ipswich. Even though Aston Villa could not win against Ipswich, they scored only one goal, and that solo goal was scored by Oli Watkins. And for that reason, he got 8 points. Of course, he has a fixture with Liverpool in this midweek. So hopefully he will also score some points because defensively Liverpool are not stable in the recent Premier League fixtures or in the recent matches. And next forward in my team is Mateta, Jean-Philippe Mateta from Crystal Palace. Of course, he had a good return against Everton. Even though Everton won the match, the solo goal scored by Crystal Palace was from the boots of Mateta. And if you see the fixture difficulty ratings for Mateta, he also have a very pretty decent good run of favorable fixtures to come against Fulham for game week 26. 27 game week 27 is against Aston Villa and game week 28 against Ipswich, who are battling for relegation survival. So my verdict is to keep Jean-Philippe Mateta for game week 26 against Fulham. And the last forward in my team is Chris Wood. Chris Wood is actually defying the odds. Even though he is 33 years old, he is consistently delivering FPL Gameweek points for a quite number of game weeks. So if you see his form, even though he was not consistent against Bournemouth in game week 23, he scored only 2 points. But against Bournemouth, he scored a hat trick and a career best game week total of 17 points in a single game week. And against Fulham also, even though they didn't win against Fulham, the only goal was scored by Chris Wood. But when you see the upcoming fixtures, it's actually very tough for Nottingham Forest and especially for Chris Wood. Game week 26 against Newcastle with fixture difficulty 4. All of the upcoming 3 fixtures are having fixture difficulty 4, and these are against Newcastle, Arsenal, and Manchester City, respectively. So, my opinion about Chris Wood for next game week is to analyze the situation, and if there are any alternate options available, go for it. And you can sell Chris Wood if you have financial difficulties in your FPL budget, or if you think he can consistently perform again for these difficult fixtures, you can keep him. So overall I have scored 74 points. So coming to the assistant managership, I have used Arne Slot in the game week 24 as well, because Slot had 4 games in 2 game weeks. So if you see the information of Arne Slot, you can see that in game week 24 he had scored 15 points. If it had not been the last minute equalizer from James Tarkowski of Everton, he might have scored much better in game week 24. But the Everton game was a draw, which was well deserved for Evertonians. And coming to game week 25, his team has secured a win against Wolves. And for that fixture, he didn't get a clean sheet bonus point, but for the win and for the goal scored, he scored 8 points. Of course, the game week 25, the next fixture against Aston Villa will be a tricky one at Villa Park, and looking forward how Klopp will manage his team against Aston Villa. So fingers are crossed for midweek game 25 against Aston Villa. As you can analyze in the FPL, for the game week 24, the best managerial selection was David Moyes of Everton. He had scored, I think, 24 game week points, because Everton also had a double game week on 24. Everton won against Leicester on the first game week of 24, 3-0. And for the second game, Everton draw with their Merseyside neighbours Liverpool 2-2. And because of this draw, and where the Liverpool stand and the Everton stand in the Premier League table, Everton manager David Moyes got the extra bonus points for a draw, which is plus 5 points. So for the game, I think a total of 20 points were scored by Everton manager David Moyes. But for this week, I think the best manager who scored the maximum number of points was Fabian Hersler of Brighton. Brighton demolished Chelsea 3-0, and I can say that he had scored the tabletop bonus points also, and he has scored 21 game week points. Fabian Hasler. So the star manager of Game Week 25 is Fabian Hasler of Brighton. And as you can see in my substitute bench, uh, the goalkeeper is Sells from Nottingham Forest. Cole Palmer is having a cold run of patch in his form. He is yet to find a purple patch in his game week. So considering Sells, it is best bet to sell the Sells goalkeeper, because if you see the upcoming fixtures for match Sells, it's not very good. The fixture difficulty is at its peak, maximum fixture difficulties of 4 against Newcastle, Arsenal, and Manchester City. So my verdict is to sell at Sells if you have for game week 26, unless you have free transfers and any other strategies, you can sell him, because for the next couple of game weeks he's going to have a tough run of fixtures. And about Cole Palmer, Chelsea is underperforming currently. They are not having a good run of results. As you can see, the form of Cole Palmer is very uh, uncommon, and with his form, he should perform better actually. If you analyze game week 23, 24, and 25, he had only amassed 10 points. So with his caliber, I think this is way behind his mark. But if you see the upcoming run of fixtures for Cole Palmer, it is game week 26 against Aston Villa, which is going to be tight. But the game week 27 and 28 fixtures are very, very favorable. And these fixtures are against a relegation team, the current relegation teams such as Southampton and Leicester, who are in 20th position and 18th positions in the table respectively. So my verdict for Cole Palmer is to keep Cole Palmer. So you never know when he can deliver, good points in FPL. So for the past 4 game weeks, he has not performed well, but you can always see it only takes a moment for him to sparkle. So my verdict is to keep Cole Palmer for the upcoming fixture lists. Talking about the defensive substitutions, the first defensive substitution is Vitaly Mikalenko from Everton. So he hadn't had a good run of fixtures, even though Crystal Palace game was won by Everton. He had only amassed 2 points because he considered one goal. And against Liverpool, obviously the fixture was very tough. Apart from that, he had performed well against Leicester and Brighton Hove Albion. He had amassed 12 game week points from those 2 fixtures. So if you see, his form is slightly worrying right now. He's only having a form of 3.2 points per match. And if you see the fixtures, upcoming fixtures, it is against Manchester United. Manchester United are struggling like anything because they have more injury concerns, and their form and fitness are also very concerning. So I hope in the game week 26, Mitali Miklenko is Vitali Miklenko can keep his clean sheet for Everton against Manchester United. But when you see the game week 27, the fixture is a tricky one against Brentford team, who is also which team is also the team is also unpredictable. They can score, they might not score. So my verdict for Mikalenko is to keep him for game week 26 and analyze for better options in game week 27 and 28. Talking about the last defender, it is Luis Hall. Luis Hall conceded 4 goals against Manchester City. So it was a well calculated move to bench him. So obviously he didn't score any points. Even though he's played 90 minutes, he got 2 points. With the 4 goal conceded, that points was cancelled. So totally he had 0 points. So this was actually a shock for everyone because nobody had thought like Omar Momush will score a hat trick and Manchester City will demolish by Newcastle United. So considering the upcoming fixtures for Newcastle, I think it is better to sell him. So if you haven't have much transfers, you have to optimize your transfers and choose wisely. So talking about my transfers, totally I had made 3 transfers overall for this game week. Of course, I have 74 points, but when considering the total transfers of 3 and minus 8 points, my net game week points is 66 at the moment. So when I see the transfers which I made for this game week, so I brought in Matata for Gakpo. Obviously, Gakpo is injured, and as per the Arne Slot's press conference, he might not feature in the game against Aston Villa as well. So another transfer I made is Watkins in, and Isak was out. Of course, Isak didn't score well. Against Manchester City, you can see he had only 2 game week points, and of course, he has a tough run of fixtures against Manchester, against Nottingham Forest, Liverpool, and West Ham. So he might score very well against West Ham, but I don't know the situation in game week 26 and 27. So it is a no-brainer to include Alexander Isak. So that's why I transferred him, forecasting for the upcoming run of fixtures. And the third most transfer I have made in game week 25 was to bring in Justin Kluivert for Nyaneri of Arsenal. Nyaneri was actually scoring pretty good actually. So this was not a very wise move. This is because Arsenal are facing a heavy injury crisis. Recently, Kai Havertz also got injured. Sakai is injured as well. So if you see, Nanveri may get better game time, and If you are looking for a budget midfielder option, Neri is a very good option to bring in for the next game week, because if you see his form, he has scored 16 points from the past 3 game weeks, which is considerably a good one. Especially against Manchester City, he had only played 6 minutes. In that short period of time, he had scored a goal and he had made a sudden impact as well. So he recently scored in the Champions League fixture as well. So he's having a good run of form. So my recommendation is to bring Hananweri back to the team. If you have considerable amount of budget in your options. So for game week 26, I recommend Hananweri as a differential in my team. So that's it about my transfers for game week 25. I'm still about to consider about my game week 26 transfers. So the transfers are there is only one free transfer for me. So I am thinking about reshuffling this team itself, and hopefully after the mid game week 25 result, I will see you again to analyze about the potential game week 26 transfers. Until then, it's goodbye from me. Catch you soon. Goodbye.